Welcome in. We had a little sneak peek at our first prize behind the curtain. Craig Trapp. Oh, it's Picks and Parlays. I'm your host, Chelsa Messinger. You can find me every day on Twitter. My handle is just my name, at Chelsa Messinger. And we always appreciate your feedback on social media. If you search Picks and Parlays, we're really easy to find on all of your favorite media platforms: YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, whatever you're choosing. Today, I'm rocking the sporty look because I was out running errands and I didn't have time to curl my hair. So forgive me. I've got my tiger red on. Kind of wanted to go to the driving range today, but it's raining. I'm ready for some nice weather here on the East Coast. In the meantime, we've got a great show lined up for you guys today. We're talking of basketball. We've got college basketball. We've got NBA. We've got NBA futures. Some juicy bets to sue. Maybe some long shots to win it in the NBA this year, because unlike some of the previous years, there isn't a clear and obvious favorite to win. Because in the past years, it's been, and a lot of teams on the West. But we've got some teams this year that could make a run at it and be a really great value for you guys. We're also talking a little basketball with Chip Chirimbus. And of course, we've got our daily slate of NBA games. It's going to be a great show. We've got rapid fire coming up for NBA, which is always fun because we get a lot of picks in a short amount of time. And it's been a very busy time in the NBA with the trade deadline coming and going. Which teams did the most? We'll talk about that. Just kind of thrown in our NBA futures talk. And something funny that Tony T just told me, that the Lakers are considering J.R. Smith, which, if you're familiar with memes, he was the one in the finals that forgot the score of the game and was blowing it for the Cavs. And LeBron gave him that exasperated look that became an internet sensation. So I'd love to see a LeBron J.R. Smith reunion in LA. I think it would be hilarious. We've got a great show. We're back after the break talking NBA future picks and parlays. Ooh. Is radio on the Sports Byline Broadcast Network, and also streaming on Facebook, Twitter, and segment on today's show. We are talking NBA futures, which is especially interesting because we've just had the NBA trade deadline. So a lot of these teams are looking a little different. They're trying to make some moves. And of course, it looks like a team from the West is probably going to be the team to beat with the Lakers and the Clippers. But the Bucks are also looking really good right now. They're one of the favorites to win it all. We've got Craig Trapp joining us to talk some NBA futures and some value. Craig, what you got? Any of these teams looking better to you now that the trade deadline has passed?
Well, we were talking before we started here, and I said I don't think there's any of the, maybe outside the Clippers. The Clippers get Marcus Morris and Isaiah Thomas in a trade. That could help their playoff chances or their championship chances. But everybody else, as far as contenders, I would say the top 10 most obvious choices, didn't really make any moves. And like you said, Tony T kind of broke to us that the Lakers are looking at picking some people off of maybe the waiver wire. J.R. Smith,
big move there.
Yeah, I think what the Lakers could use is a player like a J.J. Redick type. We see some of these guys.
They need a shooter.
Yeah, they could use some shooters. For me, I just think the obvious choices right now: the Bucks at plus 275, the Lakers at plus 275, the Clippers at plus 320. Everybody else is 12-1 or greater. I think this is more wide open than that. I just think it's more, yes, I think the obvious favorite, if I had to pick one, would be the Clippers to win it all. If you said, who's the most obvious, irregardless of the future odds, I would say the Clippers is who I would pick. But it's way more wide open than just those three short favorites for me.
Do you think it's more wide open in the East as opposed to the West? Because obviously in the past few years, that's been the case. it's not as clear and obvious in the West. It's not like the Warriors were in the years
Yeah.
of the past, but it seems like the path in the East might be a little easier. Agree or disagree?
Well, I think the East is easier. You could tell me probably any team that makes the playoffs could go deep and maybe even get to the championships, to the finals from the East. But I don't think it's as obvious in the West. I think Denver's pretty good in the West. Portland has snuck in. Now they're in the 8th spot. With the way Damian Lillard's playing right now, if you're the 1 seed, would you want to face Portland in the first round? No way.
He's hitting threes from Vancouver.
Yeah, exactly. He is playing out of his mind, and Portland, of course, McCollum's been out. So, I mean, they've been doing it with their hand behind the back. How about the Dallas Mavericks? You're looking at a team that is, when Luka's healthy, is as dangerous as anybody in the West. And right now, what are they? They're the
and Porzingis, if he's healthy too. He's
right.
been banged up a little bit too.
And they're the 7th
Right.
seed. How about you want to place those 2 teams? You want to play the Blazers, and then the other team, of course, is the Spurs. They've been hot, and the Grizzlies. Those are the 4 or 5 teams that are fighting for that 7th and 8th spot. They're all within a game or 2 of each other. None of those teams, if you're the Lakers or the Clippers in the West, would you want to face right now, or the Jazz. The Jazz have been pretty hot. The Nuggets, Rockets, all those teams. I mean, there's not one of those teams that is clear-cut as we've seen Golden State in years past.
Right. I think the Grizzlies are still a couple years away. They're really fun to watch. Ja Morant, obviously, super fun to watch, but I don't think they're yet. Looking at some of these odds, we were talking about the Blazers, 10,000 plus 10,000. Is that correct? Am I reading those zeros right?
Yep. Plus 10,000. Same with the Thunder. The Raptors. I mean, we even see it. 30-1. The Pacers at 66-1. To me, I don't think it's quite. I wouldn't go maybe that far because I could see the Blazers winning a round, like we saw the Denver Nuggets win as an 8th seed.
Yeah.
Back probably 15, maybe even 20 years ago now. I don't think you can see a team go from beat a 1 seed and then go ahead and go on to the finals. What I do think is that would open it wide open, though. For me, I think the most obvious choice outside of the Clippers is the Boston Celtics. I just think Brad Stevens, he finally got rid of Kyrie. Now he's got a player that's way more coachable, that really gets along with Jaylen Brown and Tatum.
Kemba Walker.
Yeah, I mean, Kemba Walker's playing great.
Is that who you're talking about?
Yeah, Kemba Walker is just, I don't know if he's an upgrade for the Celtics. I think Kyrie's better. If you just said you had to win 1 game. But when you have to win all the games to get to the championship, I like Kemba Walker better to fit in with Jaylen Brown and Tatum. Those 3 are very, very good, and they're a deep team, so they're not relying on one player. We've seen with Kemba Walker being out lately, they've been just fine. So I think the Celtics at 14-1 are a really good shot. If you said, hey, you really can go out there, I would go 25-1. The 2 I would probably throw in there would probably be the Nuggets and the Mavs at 25-1. I think both of those teams, we saw the Nuggets last year, they were the number 1 seed. Not quite as good this year. Where they're at right now, I think they're the number 3 seed as of now, but they're tied percentage points half a game behind the Clippers. So this team could end up with a 1, 2, or 3 seed still, and you're getting them at 25-1. So I would play in the West, I'd play those 2. In the East, I would play the Boston Celtics. I wouldn't play the Clippers, even though I think they're the most obvious team to win. Why? Because at just over 3-1, I don't think there's a whole lot of value there. We saw the last year. It just takes one injury. Kawhi goes down. Paul George, which of course is coming off an injury, goes down, and this team's in trouble. So to me, if I'm going to play a futures at this point of the season, right after the trade deadline, I'm looking at 10-1 or better, and all 3 of the Celtics, Mavericks, and Nuggets all get me into that range.
So let's talk about staying in the East. Let's talk about the Sixers and the Heat. Talent-wise, it seems like the Sixers should be in the conversation. They should be there. I don't know if it's the chemistry. I don't know if it's the fact that Ben Simmons cannot shoot, which is an anomaly to me, that he's in the NBA and he's his first-round draft pick, and he's not a shooter. I don't know how that happens, but Joel Embiid's throwing some subtweets his way, saying that their offense can't get going. But talent-wise, they should be there. It's a big market team. They've spent the money. Joel Embiid's a superstar. They have help around him. And then the Heat, Pat Riley's making moves down there. I mean, nobody talks about them, but they're having a good year down there.
Yeah, I mean, the Heat are now the number 4 seed. and the Sixers are the number 6 seed. Yet when you look at the odds, the Sixers are 12-1, the Heat are 25-1. Something doesn't fit here. Jimmy Butler, when they weren't able to sign him, of course, and keep all that rest of talent they had. So he went to Miami. When he gave to Miami a real shot, because he's not just a one-way player. He doesn't just play defense anymore. He's a real dude on offense now, and this is a guy that he holds everybody accountable. Every game they bring it in Miami. They did get Andre Iguodala at the trade deadline. I don't know if he's a guy that's going to push them over the top, but I think at least he gives them some veteran leadership off the bench. I like this Heat team way more than I like the Sixers. Right now, this Sixers team on the road, they play zero defense at home, but on the road, they don't even pretend. And they're just going in the wrong direction right now. Like you said, Ben Simmons, I know he worked on his three-point game, they said in the offseason, hasn't been very good, hasn't helped them a whole lot. To me, I think he just needs to, if I was the Sixers, I'd be trying to trade this guy for some draft picks in the future. He's a nice player. I just don't think you can win with a player that can't shoot the three-point on a consistent basis now in this current NBA landscape.
Right, and the Heat, I think, are almost the opposite of the Sixers. They don't have the big names. I guess Jimmy Butler obviously is a big name, but I think Iggy's a good presence to have in the locker room when you're playing in the postseason. But at this point, I think his mouth is better than his game. He's getting older. I don't think he's quite the guy that he used to be, but he's still an addition. He can still be a great role player for them. But it'll be interesting to plays out in the East. And the Bucks, I know everybody talks about Giannis, but Chris Middleton, he's been scoring a lot of points too. And in the postseason, he's been great. So I'd like to see what the Bucks do in the postseason this year. I remember being really disappointed in the playoffs last year to see them kind of wilt.
Well, I think that's the problem, though, Chelsa. When you have a team that, they're the number 1 seed last year, a lot of expectations coming into this year. Now they have those ghosts. Come to playoffs, they get down a game in the playoffs or get down in a game in a series. That could be the issue. That's why I have to bet against the team, even though right now they're playing very good basketball, especially at home. I mean, they're almost unbeatable at home, but plus 275 is a little crazy right now for a futures game with a team that didn't even make it to the finals last year.
Right. All right. So just to recap, what were the teams that you liked real quick?
Yeah, I like the Celtics at 14-1, the Denver Nuggets, and the Dallas Mavericks at 25-1. I think I would put all three of those teams. If you hit any one of them, you're going to have a pretty good payoff.
All right. That is our segment with Craig Trapp on NBA Futures. Hopefully you can get some good value out of that one. When we come back on Picks and Parlays, we're talking college basketball and more NBA on Picks and Parlays. And we're back on Picks and Parlays on the Sports Byline Broadcast Network and also streaming on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. I am your host, Chelsa Messinger. You can find me every day on Twitter. My handle is just my name, at Chelsa Messinger. And also, if you want any more info on bets and picks and parlays, you can find us on social media. If you search Picks and Parlays, we're really easy to find. Usually the first thing that pops up on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Let's keep things rolling right now with a little college basketball and a little sprinkling of NBA. We've got this joining us with his headset. He's ready to rumble. He's got on his tie, and he's looking nice. How's your week going, Chip?
Not bad, Chelsa. How are you? You look wonderful. Welcome back.
Oh, thanks. I was
You know,
saying earlier, I've got my sporty look going because I was running a little late. So
I think it looks
excuse the
great.
ponytail.
Well, I think it looks great.
All right, so let's dive into some of these college basketball games. Well, there's a big smorgasbord of games to, but we're choosing these few games. Let's start with Davidson at VCU. The line on the or the total on this one's 136.5. VCU favored -9. Davidson 11-10, 9-12 against the spread. VCU 16-6, 8-14 against the number. Who do we like in this one?
Well, Chelsea, the Rams, the Virginia Commonwealth, hasn't quite been the same since Shaka Smart left them for Texas. They are 16-6 on the season, which is really wonderful. 12-1 at home, and this is a home game. But against the points, they've only covered 5 of those 13 games, Chelsea. And when they're up against Davidson, they seem to struggle a little more often than other teams in the conference. The Rams are 5-4 in the conference. Davidson is 4-5. VCU has won the last 2 meetings and 3 of the last 4, but they still, like I said, are 5-11 at home in their last 16 overall. And this Davidson team had won 5 in a row before they lost their 5th in a row. Now they've bounced back and won 4 of the last 5, but they are only 1-4 on the road. Now, other than the fact that I think this line's a little bit inflated. I think they're giving the Virginia Commonwealth a little too much credit. Davidson, of course, is the alma mater of Steph Curry, so I'm going to have to go with the Wildcats here just because I'm a big Curry fan.
All right, and +9 is a lot of points. Let's move
Yeah,
on
it
to
is.
Maryland. Oh, go ahead.
Go
I'm
ahead.
not going to cut you
No,
off.
I was going to say it is particularly for a conference game and these teams with virtually the same conference record, 1 game between them. I don't think it's going to be stretched out very much. I would take the points.
All right, let's go on to Maryland and Illinois. This is not a big spread. Illinois is favoring this one at -1.5. Total is 133 and a hook. Who do we like in this one and why?
Well, this is a Big Ten matchup. It's got 2 top-rated teams. Number 21, Illinois, small favorite at home against Maryland. Now, Maryland is ranked number 9 in the nation, and Maryland opened the season along with Illinois. Both of them opened their Big Ten schedule at Maryland, and in that game, Maryland was a 10-point favorite, which was huge at the time. They won 59-58, Chelsea. And the Terrapins are 18-4 straight up at home, but only, on the year, and only 11-10 on the season. On the road, they're only 2-4. They've only played 6 games on the road, 2-3 against the number, whereas Illinois is 12-1 straight up at home. And with this number, Chelsea, they're virtually telling you all you have to do is pick the winner. I mean, you could take the money line here and maybe lay $1.20 with Illinois, which would be more advisable than having to lay a point here. And the problem is, here's a team 12-1, Chelsea, that's only a 1-point favorite, a 1.5, 2-point favorite at home. It raises my eyebrows here, looking that maybe Maryland's going to come in off of their defeat. Illinois has taken the last 3 matchups, and they had lost the previous 3 matchups. So what's going on with these 2 teams is that they both play great defense. Maryland's defense at 64.2, and you have Illinois' defense at 61.7. These 2 are destined to play a game where the winner scores 58, 55 points. They did it the first time out when it was 58, 57. And the dog in the series is 4-0. I don't know. I think Chelsea, that might be negligible with a 1.5-point spread. But I'm going to play the under here because in Illinois games where they play teams with winning records, at home, they've gone 39-19. Now, that's a really long sample that we have there, and that shows over time when this team has a crowd behind them, they're willing to play defense. We know a lot of teams, particularly in the NBA, maybe not so much in college, don't really get psyched to play defense around the road. And what they're trying to say here is that Illinois plays really tough defense when they're at home. I think this game is destined to stay under the total.
All right, just quickly, I know there's a lot of people trickling in from football season that are new to betting college basketball. As a veteran of the industry, what are some quick tips for betting college basketball that maybe play a little differently than betting football or NBA?
I think that emotionally in college, particularly in basketball, that teams are on a big high one night, they come up with a big upset win, and the next time out, everyone thinks that you're always as good as your last appearance, and that usually doesn't happen, especially with these kids who are so emotional, where they get so psyched and so ready to play game, and if they happen to win that game, it's a big rivalry game. We saw this happen with Alabama and Auburn a couple of weeks ago, where Alabama upset Auburn, who was undefeated, and the next game out, Alabama gets waylaid. So be careful of these young emotions with these players where they get particularly high and they win an upset situation. Look for them to come out flat next time out.
Also, something I've noticed this season, there's not a far and away number one. It seems like there's a new number one every week. And some of these rankings don't even seem to matter, as we've seen in some of these point spreads. Vegas is not giving the credit for these ranked teams. Is that to you? Is that something that we do? Is that a little different this year?
That's a really good point, Chelsa, because it's one thing we noticed this year. We sort of have a theory around here. We're always looking for non-ranked teams to be favored over ranked teams. And that's sort of giving an indication that there's an upset brewing. But this year, there are so many teams, like you said, have been number one, maybe 7, 8 different teams. And teams are now out of the top 25 that were in the top 3 or 4. Michigan's an example of one. They were ranked number 4 in the nation at one time, and maybe they really weren't that good. I would have a tendency, Chelsea, to trust the odds maker and the line they set up more than the coaches' polls. The coaches, there's sometimes a lot of political aspects to what they're doing. So I think that the odds makers who are looking to set a true figure, a true number on the game, is a better read than the rankings that you may see in the AP or the coaches' polls.
Right. So if it looks fishy, it probably is, like you mentioned, with some of these teams. If they're 12-1 and at home, and they're only favored by 1.5. Let's move on to. Oh, keep going. I keep cutting you off. I'm sorry.
No, I said that's my point. You pointed that out. You were right. I mean, that was the point. That's exactly a great example that I was saying. Here we have both teams are ranked at 21-9, so not as much disparity, but the theory still holds true.
Right. That's why you play the number, and you make your judgments based off that. All right, let's go to a little NBA. Mavs Wizards. Mavs favored in this one -4. I don't believe we have a total on this one yet. Where are we leaning?
Well, this looks pretty ugly to me. They're both coming off losses. Fortunately, in Dallas's last loss, we did have Memphis as our lead play. That was on Tuesday night. Excuse me, it was on Wednesday night. Washington, of course, has just been atrocious all year. They've been a bottom feeder now for a while. 17-32 on the year. They are an equalizer with the point spread, Chelsea. They're 24-24, 11-12 straight up at home, and 12-11 against the points. 4-1 as a home dog. Now, this is a Washington Wizards team which has covered 6 of their last 8 home games, but they're in a tough spot here. They're up against a team that's 17-7 against the points on the road. 17-7 straight up on the road, and Chelsea against the points. This Mavericks team has gone 16-5-2. Which is absolutely tremendous. The thing is, I think that they were beating the odds makers, the Mavericks, that is. Dallas is beating the odds makers early in the year, and usually in the second half of the year, the odds makers get a chance to get back and even things up. They had won 5 in a row against Washington, but now they've dropped their last 2, and the numbers are overwhelming. What they do to this Wizards team. This Dallas team is 11-3 in the last 14 matchups. That's against the points. They're 6-1 at Washington, the last 7 trips there, and they're 13-3-1 as a road favorite. So I have no other choice but to take the Wizards. I mean, the odds, this is so overwhelming that Dallas looks like so much the side. The only thing I can say is that it looks like that they've hit a little stumbling block and they're struggling, and they're not quite as smooth as they've been in recent weeks, or in the past month, shall I say. In recent weeks, now they got Doncic out and Porzingis is back. And Porzingis had a great game the other night. He had 39 points and 18 rebounds, and they lost the game. So it's not quite the same, I think, right now for the Mavericks. I would play against everything, and every good instinct that you have says to lay the Mavericks. I'll take Washington plus the points.
And something that just came out is Porzingis is listed as questionable against the Wizards because he has a broken nose. So just one more little tidbit, which is trouble. I mean, he's been playing better, but as you mentioned, they're still losing. But
well, maybe this is why they can't smell a victory. I just don't understand it. But they're They're struggling out there, Chelsea. I'm sorry for that.
Oh, they can't smell it. But yeah, obviously look at the injury report before you
Yeah.
place any of your bets, especially in the NBA, and especially because there's been load management too, and emotional tolls and stuff. So anytime you're taking a game, check the injury report and make sure the superstars are playing. But I would imagine that the lines usually reflect that, correct?
Yes, they would. And also, nowadays they have these incredible plastic see-through masks that these guys wear when they have to protect their face. Sometimes cheekbones, sometimes their nose. But they do it. I mean, it looks like Halloween and who knows what. But if Porzingis is willing to wear one, some people find it very distracting. Kyrie Irving was one of the great
I was
players
going to
who
say
used it.
Kyrie's worn
Yeah.
one before.
Yes,
Hasn't
he has. And
LeBron? I feel like several guys worn them.
several players have, and Kyrie's the most prominent that comes to mind because I remember having to
Yeah,
hide in the closet when I saw him.
he played with one for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right. Well, we're running out of time. Thanks,
Well,
Chip, for joining us. Next up, got more NBA on Picks and Parlays.
thank you, Chelsea.
Plays on the Sports Byline Broadcast Network and also streaming on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. If you want to search us on any of your favorite social media platforms, we've got more good stuff for you guys there. And we always appreciate your feedback as well. If you want to drop us a line, I'm your host, Chelsa Messinger. You can find me on Twitter every day. My handle is just my name, at Chelsa Messenger. It's been a great show filled with basketball. We did a little college basketball. We did some NBA futures. And now we're diving into some rapid fire where we go down the line and pick a bunch of games and hopefully pick a bunch of winners. Speaking of winners, we've got Craig Trapp and Tony T joining us. Hello, fellas.
How are we doing, Chelsea?
Hello, Chelsa.
All right, let's dive right in. Let's start with Memphis and Philadelphia. Grizzlies, Sixers, and the Sixers are favored in this one, -7.5. The Sixers emotionally have been a bit of a train wreck. For the talent they have, not playing to their potential, they should be one of the teams in the East that are contending. Meanwhile, the Grizzlies are a young team that are extremely fun to watch. Ja Morant is putting on a clinic down there when it comes to highlight reel stuff, but not necessarily maybe a favorite to win it this year. They're still a few years off. Let's talk about this game in particular. Let's start with Craig. Who do you like in this one?
Well, it's hard to play the 76ers team. The effort, or lack of effort, I should say, they give on defense at times, or at least consistently throughout a game, is really, it just jumps off the TV when you watch it. And you face a team like this Grizzlies team that can really embarrass you if you don't play defense, because they can really, Dillon Brooks and Ja Morant have been unbelievable this year. I think both of them have a field day against a Sixers team that just isn't consistent and doesn't give consistent effort. I have to take this the Memphis Grizzlies +7.5 here. I wouldn't even be opposed to taking a little sprinkle a little money line action in this one. I just think the Grizzlies have a real shot to win this outright, but covering 7.5, I don't think will be any problem.
Speaking of defense, I don't think anybody's playing defense really this season. If you look at some of the totals in these games, they're getting outrageous. So I don't know if that's a league-wide trend, but defense doesn't seem to be anybody's forte. Tony T, let's circle back to this game. Grizzlies Sixers, Sixers -7.5. Do Do you like the Sixers or do you like the Grizzlies?
Yeah, I'm with Craig here. I like the Grizzlies plus the points. I mean, Memphis is a team you really don't want to play on a back-to-back, especially with Grizzlies with rest because they're fast. They have a fast pace. And, they've won and covered 6 of their past 7 games. Their form is really good right now. They're hitting 50% of their shots over their past 5, holding teams to 40%. As we said, the Bucks are going to be coming off a hard game facing Milwaukee. Now, you always have to be worried about Joel Embiid in a back-to-back spot, so you got to keep your eye there. Maybe you can play this game early and take the points, because if they list Embiid out, or who knows what his status will be up to game time, that line will move. And of course, during the trading deadline, Philadelphia is getting help. But a lot of times those traded players, they don't really play the next night. So I think you're going to just pretty much see the regular rotation in there for Philly. So I'll take the points with Memphis.
All right, let's move on down the line. Atlanta, Boston, Celtics -9 in this one. In our NBA Futures talk, Craig liked the Celtics for a value play. Who do we like in this one? Do we like the Celtics laying the big number, or do we like Trae Young and the Hawks?
Well, Trae Young's one of those players exciting to watch. But speaking of a player that doesn't play much defense, Trae Young he's one of those guys that leads the league on probably points scored against him. So it's good that he does score a lot of points because he gives up his fair share against a Celtics team that they have a lot of scorers and a lot of depth. One of the reasons why I think the Celtics at 14-1 are a very solid play in the futures market to win it all. I think this Boston Celtics team, it sounds like they'll get Kemba back here, but even if they don't, they've shown that it doesn't matter who plays for the Celtics team. They're so deep, they just plug a new player in and turn it up. I like the Boston Celtics -9 here. I think they win by double digits. Pretty easy win here.
Who do you like in this one?
Yeah, I'm with Craig here. Whenever I see Boston against a bad defensive team, I'm always going to lean toward the Celtics. I'll do it again here. They have been injured, as Craig says. Looks like Kemba Walker will be back, as well as Marcus Smart. Marcus Smart's a really good hustle player out there. Hawks are another team that's been hit with cluster injuries surrounding Trae Young. Now, they did receive Clint Capella, but again, he has a heel injury, and of course, these traded players usually don't play the next day in their new city. Remember, Jabari Parker was an offensive contributor. He's out. Of course, looking at current form, the Celtics past 5 games, 50% shooting, 40% from 3. They're holding teams to 41%. And the Hawks' defensive form really bad right now in that span of 5 games, allowing 49%. I'll go ahead and lay the points with Boston.
All right, speaking of bad defense, the Rockets and the Suns, not two teams known for playing any defense. Rockets are favored in this one, -2. Craig, who do you like in this one?
Well, Rockets are in a back-to-back here. That's the one question. This Houston team, talking about embracing playing small ball, they're like, let's just go. It doesn't matter who we play. We'll play 5 guards, which is basically what they're doing right now, or 5 perimeter players. Let's just call it that. Against a Suns team that, man, I thought early in the year this Suns team could push for the 7th, 8th, maybe even 6th spot. But we just haven't seen the consistent play through Phoenix. I know Houston's in a back-to-back, so you have to watch this. I see the total or the spread at -2 here. I'll take the Houston Rockets, but make sure you check, early in the morning or throughout the day as we update to make sure that both Westbrook and Harden are going to play in this one.
And I believe the Suns are not a team that have been very good at home, especially against the number. I think last week when I took them, they were 0-6 against the spread at home. Not great. Tony T, who are you taking?
Yeah, I'm going to stay away from the spread here. When the total comes out, I'm going to be looking to play over. And I'm going to be looking to play over in a lot of Houston games now that they moved their rim defender Clint Capella out. And, of course, they also moved out a first-round pick, so they're trying to win now. Robert Covington is someone they looked for. They bring him in. And he's in Houston now, and everything I've read looks like he's actually going to play because he's in the city. So I'll look here to go over. One thing to note here, Phoenix, they're without the rim protector, Aaron Baines. This has been the issue with Phoenix. When Baines, Ayton, and Booker are together, they're fine. But when Baines has been getting hurt a lot, remember Ayton had that suspension to start the season. He's been banged up, but Baines is out. He's a rim defender. And, of course, the Suns' defensive form bad. When you lose to Detroit, giving up 116 points, it's pretty bad. Past 5 games allowing 47% shooting. Rockets' defense has not been good at all either, but they are hitting their shots. And without Capella, I think you're gonna have a fast pace here with the Phoenix or rested team. I'll go ahead when the total comes out. I'm gonna pound it over.
Tony, real quick, let's talk about the totals this year. As I mentioned earlier, they've been really high, and still we've been seeing some overs. hit when it's almost two. I feel like it's approaching. Pretty soon it's going to be there. What are some of the trends you've seen when it comes to the totals? And I know it's fun to play the over, but sometimes the under's the play. Does that seem odd this year to you?
Well, I think what's happened is that the teams now with the analytics, so we saw this with the San Antonio Spurs, the three-point shot now, teams are really focusing on three-point shooting. We just saw a deal here with the Lakers going after a player, Morris, because he was hitting with, the Clippers went after Morris, hitting over 43% of his threes. Three-point shooting now is what the game is. And if you look at some shot charts, I know Houston it was a funny shot chart we saw with the Rockets in the playoffs. It's either a layup or a three-point shot from Houston. And I think what's happening now is, like people say, 3 is better than 2. We're seeing a lot of threes, and when you're dealing with long rebounds off 3-point misses, you're going to get fast breaks and fast movement the other way. And also one thing to note, a lot of young players are playing the league now. We see guys in their 20s. Some have, half their rotation is in their early 20s. You never saw that before in the NBA. And those guys, their bodies aren't built to play defense against some of the physical teams in the league. And we're seeing offense over defense now, especially with these young players, because they're going a full 40 plus minutes. Like guys like Trae Young, they would have never played in the league in the 80s because they couldn't. If you couldn't play defense, you didn't play. But now they forgive these guys.
Right, and something I've noticed, it's not just threes, it's long threes. Damian Lillard has been making some of these threes from almost half court. Usually it was just three that did this, but it's fun to watch, I guess. But I digress. Let's get back. Heat Kings, Heat -2 in this one. Craig, who do you like?
Well, we talked about it in the NBA Futures in the first segment today. This Miami Heat team, they just bring it every night. Jimmy Butler, when you get Jimmy Butler, he's going to hold everybody accountable on both sides of the floor. I think that carries well on the road because obviously you have to play much better defense on the road against a Sacramento team that they could use a player like this. They could use a veteran that comes in and holds all these young players accountable. I like the Heat here -2. I'm just not a big fan of the Sacramento team. I continue to wonder, what is the direction here? What are they looking for? I haven't seen that this year, so I'm going to fade them again. Let's take the Miami Heat -2 here.
Plus, it looks like the Heat are, I guess, all in this year. They've made some good moves, is what I'm trying to say. Pat Riley's making some moves, getting some good defenders. I know they got a daughter, so that's got to be a good thing for them, knowing that their team is in it to win it. Tony T, who do you like in this one?
Yeah, I'm with Craig here. I'm going to look to play the Heat. And I know they're going to add Jay Crowder, Solomon Hill, and Andre Iguodala. Likely, these traded players don't play the following night after a trade. But more importantly, It's going to add depth to the Miami team for the regular season. And I don't know if there'll be much playoff impact. That's questionable at best. But I do like the fact that they'll be able to rest some of their rotational players a little bit more with those 3 players coming in. One thing to note here is keep an eye on the injury report because Jimmy Butler did leave that Clipper game with a shoulder injury. Harrell as well is questionable with an ankle. But, Sacramento has just been, they split their first 2 games here on this homestand. They got that big loss to Lakers. But their defensive form is really poor when you look at them over the past 5 games, allowing 43% from the 3-point line. The Heat, they're second best 3-point shooting team in the league. They're number 1 in defending the 3. So we have one of those strength versus weakness angles. That's why I like Miami in this game.
All right, last on the docket, Blazers, Jazz. Jazz favoring this one, 8.5. Total sits at 226.5. Craig, where are you leaning?
Well, to me, I think you have to go with the total in this one. This Blazers team, obviously, like you said earlier, Damian Lillard he's playing out of his mind. The Kobe night where, of course, the Lakers were hosting the Blazers, and he basically won it himself against LeBron, and obviously LeBron wanted to win that one for Kobe. So I think it speaks to how well the Blazers are playing, especially Damian Lillard. I can't lay against him here, even though they're in the back-to-back. So to me, I think you have to go with the over here, over 226.5. Anytime I see a Blazers game that's not 230 or more, I'm going to pretty much be on the over. Even if I don't believe it as one of my best bets, I'm usually putting it on my personal card. So I'm going to take the over 226.5 as I think Damian Lillard has another huge night for Portland.
All right, Tony, who do you like?
I'm gonna lay the points with Utah -8.5 all day. This is a tough spot for them. They're going to hit a wall here with the schedule. Portland, obviously a back-to-back, but you got to go back and look further. They're playing their 5th game in 7 days. The past 7 days are playing their 2nd set of back-to-backs here, and I think this is going to catch up to them. Remember, out is Nurkic, Rodney Hood, Zach Collins. Those were key rotational players who've been on the injured list. Now, when they're home rested, yeah, their reserves can fill in. And, of course, Damian Lillard can be Damian Lillard. But when you're playing your 5th game in 7 nights and you're playing in the high elevation of Utah, no good. It's going to be a blowout here. Just like we saw Denver blow out Portland a couple nights ago, you're going to see a blowout in this one. I like Utah laying the points.
Yeah, and Utah, you can't get the strong beer. So if you lose, it's going to be a little bit tougher. You got to drink a few more beers. All right. Thanks, guys. NBA roundtable or square table, I guess. So.
Sharp table. Sharp table.
Sharp table. Ooh, I like that better. A little play on words when we get back from the break. On Pick Stick with us. We're back after the break. And Parlays on the Sports Byline Broadcast Network, and also streaming on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. All of your favorite social media platforms, we're there, and we're waiting. If you want to drop us a line, I'm your host, Chelsa Messinger. You can stay on Twitter at Chelsa Messinger. It's my handle. It's my name. If you want to drop me a line, I'm there. Let's recap all of today's picks in case you weren't patient, or if you're just now tuning in, we got you covered. Starting with NBA Futures from Craig Trapp. He likes the Clippers at +3, his top pick. But for some value, he likes the Celtics at +1,400. And some super long shot picks for best bang for your buck at +2,500. And the Mavericks at +2,500 as well. Moving on to a little college basketball, Davidson at VCU. Taking Davidson, the fighting Steph Currys at +9. Maryland, Illinois, Maryland 1.5. Mavs at Wizards, taking the Wizards at 4.5. Moving on to some more NBA. Tony T gave us some rapid fire picks. Raptors, Pacers, taking the Raptors in that one at a pick'em. Blazers, Jazz -8.5. Grizzlies, Sixers, taking the Grizz, Memphis, +7.5. Hawks at Celtics, taking the Celtics -9. Rockets, Suns, take the over. Heat at Kings, taking the Heat -2. Moving on to Craig Trapp's rare picks. Blazers, Jazz, taking the over at 2.6.5. And Grizzlies, 6, taking the Grizz at +7.5. Hawks at Celtics. Take the Celtics -9. Those are all our picks for today. And yeah, fun times in the NBA. Lots of good stuff going on with Headline. We've got more good stuff every weekday if you want to join us. Until next time, I'm your host, Chelsa Messinger. Thanks for joining us on Picks and Parlays.